You're tuning in to Creepy Time, where we bring you chilling, creepy stories and eerie urban legends every. To support Creepy Time, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts in the comments so we can discuss the story together. Now, let's dive into today's tale. Rules for being home alone at night. I don't expect anyone to believe me. Hell, I probably wouldn't believe it myself if I hadn't lived through it, but I need to write this down. Not just for my own sanity though, God knows that's hanging by a thread, but because someone else out there might stumble into the same nightmare. And if they do, maybe this story will keep them alive. My name is Caden Everhart. I'm 12 years old, and this is the story of the 3 weeks that nearly destroyed my family. It all started last October. My dad, Grant, got laid off from his job in Jersey City, and my mom, a landscape designer, had been dreaming about a slower, quieter life for years. So when we inherited a big old house in upstate New York, a fixer-upper my great-aunt Ruth left us, my parents jumped at the chance. For them, it was an opportunity. For me, it felt like walking straight into a nightmare. The house was located on the edge of Whitmore Hollow, a tiny town where everyone seems to know each other and the nearest Walmart is 30 minutes away. The place was a 3-story Victorian beast with ivy climbing up the sides, cracked shutters, and a basement door that looked like it hadn't been opened in 50 years. My little sister, Ellie, she's 7, thought it looked like a castle. I thought it looked like it had secrets. The first night we slept there, something felt wrong. Not like a I miss my old room kind of wrong. More like the air was heavy, too quiet. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and know someone was just there even though they're not? That was the entire house. At 2:13 a.m., I woke up to what I thought was someone walking around downstairs. The boards creaked with slow, deliberate steps. I listened, frozen in bed, waiting to hear my dad's voice. Nothing. Then came the scratching faint but rhythmic like nails dragging along the basement door. I wanted to believe it was a raccoon or old pipes, but deep down, I knew better. 3 days later, I found a letter, stuffed inside the air vent behind my closet wall, wrapped in waxy brown paper that smelled like mold and metal. It wasn't long, but it was terrifying. Just a page with 5 rules, handwritten in shaky cursive. To whoever finds this, if you're living in this house, follow these rules or you're already dead. I didn't listen, and my brother paid the price. Never go down to the basement after 11 p.m., not even to check a noise. If someone calls your name at night, don't answer unless you can see who it island. If you feel breathing on your neck and you're alone, don't turn around. Just run. If there's a knock at the door after midnight, do not open it, unless the person can tell you something only you would know. If the family dog refuses to enter a room, stay out of that room. At first, I thought it was a joke, some weird local tradition. You know, like putting scarecrows in cornfields or telling ghost stories at camp. But something about the writing, the smudges, the frantic underlines, the way the ink bled through the page felt too real. Then things got worse. I did some digging online and found something that still makes my skin crawl. In the 1982nd, there were reports of 3 kids going missing in the woods behind Whitmore Hollow, 2 siblings in 1983, another girl alone in 1989. No bodies were ever found. All lived within a mile radius of this house. Even stranger, in a local Reddit thread, someone mentioned a dark house with a locked basement and a missing cousin no one talks about anymore. The day after I found the letter, my parents adopted a rescue dog, a big black German shepherd named Max. They thought I needed a guardian and figured it would help me sleep better. At first, it worked. Max slept at the foot of my bed like clockwork, but by the 5th night, he started growling at the wall. Not the window, not the hallway, the wall. Every night between 2 and 3 a.m., Max would sit up, ears twitching, staring at the south corner of my room like something was standing there. I never saw anything. But one night, I heard breathing, wet, raspy, slow, right behind my ear. I followed the rule. I didn't turn around. I ran, grabbed Max, and slept in the bathtub with the lights on. This wasn't just some haunted house story anymore. Something was testing us, whispering in the dark, scratching at our sanity. I started seeing shadows that didn't belong to anything. My sister claimed she heard someone singing from the heating vents. My dad thought we were being overly dramatic. My mom said it was the stress of the move. But deep down, I knew this house was feeding on us. And the rules? They weren't a superstition. They were a survival guide. If you're watching this and think, that couldn't happen to me, I want you to ask yourself something. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt like you shouldn't be there? Have you ever heard your name whispered when no one else was around? Have you ever almost opened the door at midnight because you thought it was your mom calling you? The difference between you and me might just be 5 rules. Rules I didn't write, but I chose to follow. Rules that might have saved my life. This was just the beginning, and I wish I could say things got better from here. But the house had other plans. When you read a rule like, never go into the basement after 11 p.m., you assume it's either symbolic or just another trope in a campfire story. You don't actually expect there to be consequences. But that rule, it was the first one I broke. I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to test fate or prove I wasn't afraid. I was just tired of the noises, of the way the shadows stretched in weird directions at night, of not being able to sleep in my own house without the feeling that something was breathing right beneath the floorboards. The basement in our new house wasn't just old, it was ancient, the kind of place that smells like rotting wood and wet iron. There was a massive cast iron furnace bolted into one corner like a rusted coffin. Cobwebs hung from every pipe. The floor was stone, not cement, and stained in places I didn't want to ask about. The door to the basement was behind the kitchen, half hidden by an antique curtain, like it didn't want to be seen. It was a Friday, a week after we moved in. My parents were out at a local wine bar trying to reclaim date night or something, and I was home babysitting Ellie. Around 10:45 p.m., she called for me from the hallway. "Caden, the bathroom light won't turn on," she said, holding her stuffed bunny close to her chest. The breaker must have tripped, I figured. The kitchen light was flickering too. I checked the electrical panel, of course. It was in the basement. I looked at the clock. 10:52 p.m. I'll be fast, I told myself. In and out, 8 minutes. What could happen? That's the kind of sentence you regret later. I grabbed a flashlight, the kitchen one we kept for power outages, and opened the basement door. The moment I cracked it open, the air shifted. It wasn't colder exactly, just heavier. Like I was walking underwater. The steps creaked under my weight. I reached the bottom and clicked on the flashlight. The light caught on something shiny water, pooled in a dark corner, reflecting a thin glimmer. I walked toward the breaker panel and flipped the switch. Nothing changed. I flipped it again. Still nothing. That's when I heard it, a soft scrape. Not a mouse, not the wind. Something deliberate, something slow. I pointed the flashlight toward the furnace. Nothing. Then I turned it slowly left. There was a figure crouched against the far wall. Not moving, not breathing. I froze. Every instinct told me to bolt, but I couldn't move. The flashlight flickered. My breathing got louder in my own ears. And then it moved. It didn't walk toward me. It slid, like it wasn't using legs. I couldn't see his face, just the shape of his back, hunched and twisted like a spider trying to mimic a person. Then came the whisper. "Caden, you opened the door." I ran. I flew up the stairs so fast I nearly knocked the kitchen chair over. I slammed the basement door shut and locked it with a rusted latch I hadn't even noticed before. I pulled Ellie into the living room and sat on the couch all night, holding the flashlight and waiting for the sun to rise. The next morning, I asked Ellie if she heard anything weird last night. "No," she said, swinging her legs at the breakfast table, "but I did have a funny dream. I dreamed there was someone in the basement who wanted to play with me. He said he used to live here." I nearly dropped my spoon. "What did he look like?" She shrugged. "I didn't see his face. He was hiding, but he told me he liked your voice." There's something deeply American, or maybe just deeply human, about not wanting to follow the rules when we don't understand the reason behind them. We're curious, rebellious. We want to believe we're the exception, that we're too smart, too strong, too grounded to fall into the same traps as those before us. But the rules weren't made by cowards. They were made by survivors. I kept thinking back to the letter I'd found. The tone wasn't panicked, it was tired, resigned, like someone who had watched too many people die trying to prove the rules wrong. Someone who realized that once you opened the door literally or metaphorically, you couldn't just pretend you didn't. That night, I went back to the letter from Marcus. I'd read it a dozen times already, but suddenly I noticed something I hadn't before. In faint pencil scribbles on the back were 4 words: "Basement watches when called." What did that mean? Did that thing only appear when someone entered the basement alone? Was the act of opening the door some kind of invitation? Or worse, was it listening? After what happened, I looked into more local records. The Whitmore Town archives aren't digital, but the County Historical Society keeps clippings. One story from 1997 caught my eye. The Solomon family, who lived less than 2 miles away, reported a break-in after their teenage son went missing. The son, Jeremy, had apparently gone to the basement to reset the hot water heater. He never came back up. Police found no signs of forced entry, but what they did find was more disturbing. Long gouge marks along the basement walls 5 feet high, claw-like, as if something with hands not tools had scraped them from the inside. The family moved out 2 days later. The case was closed without explanation. After that night, I never went near the basement again. Even during the day, I wouldn't step on the top stair. I'd cross the kitchen just to avoid looking at the door. My parents thought I was being dramatic. My dad tried to fix the wiring himself one night around midnight. The next morning, he had a nosebleed so bad it stained his pillow and ruined his shirt. The doctors said it was a burst vessel from stress. He never remembered going to the basement. But I remember the sound I heard through the floor that night. A thud, a growl, and something dragging something heavy back down the steps. Rule number 1 exists because there is something in the basement that doesn't belong in this world. Something that doesn't care what you believe. It only cares whether you give it an opening, a crack, a moment of hesitation. When it's after 11 p.m. and the basement calls your name, ignore it. The house may be yours now, but the basement, it never stopped belonging to something else. Something that's still hungry. There's something deeply primal about hearing your name spoken in the dark. It doesn't matter how old you are when someone calls your name in the middle of the night. You listen. Your brain switches on. Your body freezes. Every instinct that evolution wired into your bloodstream tells you to respond, to help, to protect. So what happens when the voice calling you is someone you love and you know with absolute certainty that they aren't there? It happened the Tuesday after the basement incident. I had school that morning, but I hadn't slept. I spent most of the night sitting up in bed, flashlight in one hand, eyes on the hallway. Whiskers, sorry, Max, our dog, didn't move from my side. He kept his head on my leg, ears twitching, like he was listening for something only he could hear. Every so often, his head would lift, and his eyes would focus on the space under the door like he expected something to crawl through. At around 3:27 a.m., I started to nod off. The flashlight had gone dim, and the glow of my nightlight had become just a faint orange smudge. I was slipping into that strange mental space between awake and asleep when I heard it. "Caden? Sweetie?" It was my mom's voice. Not close, not shouting, but there, soft, just outside my bedroom door. At first, I felt nothing but relief. Of course it was her. She must have come to check on me. I was about to answer when Max stood up so fast, he nearly knocked over my lamp. His entire body stiffened. He started to growl, not the "I'm annoyed" kind of growl, but a deep guttural warning like something ancient had stirred in his chest. And that's when I remembered rule number 2. If someone calls your name at night, don't answer unless you can see who at island. I sat up straighter. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Are you there?" Silence. Then again, softly, "Caden, open the door, sweetie. Mommy just got home. I brought you something. Come on, open up." It was her voice. Exactly. Down to the warm tone she used when waking me up for school, down to the little sing-song lilt she always had when trying to coax me out of bed, but she was supposed to be in Boston. She left that morning for a client meeting. I remembered hugging her goodbye. I remembered seeing her text 2 hours ago that she landed. I knew, logically, that she was 4 states away. But my legs still moved on their own. I was halfway across the room before Max lunged between me and the door. That broke the trance. I backed away fast, heart pounding, as the voice outside the door changed. It dropped the tone. "Caden," it said again, but flat now. Hollow. I said, "Open the door." No warmth, no rhythm, no emotion, just mimicry. Like something had studied her voice and could repeat it but couldn't understand the meaning behind the words. Max snarled louder now, and I thought for a second he might actually attack the door. Then came the knocking. Soft at first, then rhythmic, 3 taps, then 3 more, then silence. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. The next morning, my mom texted a selfie from her hotel, holding her coffee with the Boston skyline behind her. That's when I knew it wasn't her, not even close. I didn't tell my parents what happened not then. What could I even say? That I heard her voice from behind the door even though she was 300 miles away? That something out there knew how to impersonate people? I'd already been on thin ice after the basement panic, and my dad was talking about taking me to therapy. So I stayed quiet. But I did take one step that probably saved my life. I taped the rules to my wall. In big black letters written with permanent marker, "Do not open the door after dark. Do not answer unseen voices. Do not trust anyone you can't see." I started doing research online, Reddit, old forums, even the dark web. At first, it felt like I was chasing shadows. Then I stumbled on something called the Mirror People. Supposedly, they're entities that live parallel to us, not ghosts, not demons, just echoes. They mimic people, especially those you trust, and try to lure you. The name comes from the idea that they can only copy what's already there, but never perfectly. I found a post from a woman in rural Michigan who said her son died after following his dad's voice into the woods behind their house at 2 a.m. Her husband had been out of town. The boy never came back. The only thing they found was his shoe and a set of deep scratches on the tree's 5 parallel lines. I started keeping audio logs every night, just my phone on a voice memo app, recording while I slept. Most nights, it was just white noise, maybe the hum of Max breathing beside me. But on Friday, just after 3 a.m., the playback caught something. My voice. I was asleep. I never said anything. But the recording had me whispering, "Don't go, don't go, don't go, come back." Then another voice, softer, male, "You know me." That was it. I never said those words. I didn't even dream. I was out cold. Ellie came into my room that morning crying. She said she had a nightmare where I was standing in the hallway, staring at her through her door but not saying anything. When she finally called out to me, I just pointed at her window and walked away. I hadn't left my room. She swore it was me. She said I looked exactly like myself, same hoodie, same voice, but my eyes, she said, were wrong. She said they didn't move, didn't blink, like they weren't eyes at all, just black, shiny dots that reflected the hallway light. That night, I slept with the lights on, the door locked, and Max lying across the threshold, but sleep didn't come easy. I spent hours staring at the rules on my wall, reading them over and over until the lines blurred. What haunted me most wasn't the voice. It was how good it was at being her, how close it had gotten to tricking me, and how, in that moment, I had wanted it to be her so badly that I almost opened the door. Sometimes, the thing that gets us isn't fear, it's hope. Hope that what we're hearing is real, that we're not alone, that we're safe. That's how it gets you. There's a kind of fear that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't scream or shake or make your heart pound like a drum. No, this fear slips in slowly, like cold air through a cracked window. You don't even realize it's there until your skin tightens, your muscles freeze, and suddenly you're aware, painfully aware, that you are not alone. It happened on the second Thursday in the house. School had been brutal that week. Kids in Whitmore Hollow Middle were polite on the surface, but they all carried that small town tribalism like they could smell that I wasn't one of them. I didn't grow up hunting. I didn't know the names of local back roads or seasonal county fairs. And I definitely didn't know how to fake confidence when the lunch table went quiet as soon as I sat down. So I started avoiding people. Came home early, buried myself in homework. That Thursday, my parents both worked late and Ellie was at her friend Maddie's for a sleepover. Which meant for the first time since we moved in, I was completely alone in the house. It wasn't the kind of alone that feels peaceful. It was the kind where every creak of the floorboards makes your shoulders tense. I kept the television on just for the noise, but even that started to feel intrusive, like it was drawing attention. I don't know why I decided to go upstairs early. Maybe I wanted to be closer to my room, where Max was. Maybe I just wanted to feel like I had some control. I turned off the lights, brushed my teeth, and crawled under the blankets with a book and my flashlight. But even Max seemed off that night. He stayed curled at the foot of the bed, eyes open, ears up. Not relaxed, just waiting. At exactly 2:04 a.m., I woke up with a start. Not from a sound, from a sensation. The kind of jolt that comes from your body knowing something before your brain does. My neck felt cold, not just from the room, but from something else. I felt it before I heard it, the breath, warm, moist, like someone was standing inches behind me, exhaling across my skin in slow, deliberate waves. I didn't move, not right away. I wanted to believe it was just the wind from the vent, or maybe I was still dreaming. But then it happened again closer this time, a long inhale, and an even longer exhale, right against the shell of my ear. And that's when rule number 3 slammed into my brain like a freight train. If you feel breathing on your neck and you're alone, don't turn around, just run. My heart went wild. Every part of me screamed to look, to know, to see what was behind me. Curiosity and fear battling it out in my chest. But something deeper, maybe instinct, maybe the part of me that still believed in the rules, kept me frozen. I didn't turn. Instead, I rolled sideways out of bed in one fluid motion, grabbed Max by the collar, and bolted for the door. I didn't look back, not once. We flew down the hallway, past Ellie's empty room, down the stairs, through the kitchen, and straight into the garage. I slammed the door shut behind us and locked it, then curled up in the back seat of my mom's SUV, with Max sitting like a statue on the floorboards. We stayed there until sunrise. The next morning, I did a full sweep of my room. Nothing was out of place, no signs of entry, nothing on the cameras, but something had changed. The air felt different. The house, usually cold in the mornings, had this weird warmth to it, like someone had been breathing heavily in a sealed room for hours. I told myself it was just panic, that maybe I was half asleep and imagined the whole thing, but then I found the mark. On the pillow I'd left behind right where my head had been was a handprint. Not a stain, not a fold in the fabric, a full handprint, damp, like the moisture had transferred from someone or something leaning down from behind me, and it had too many fingers. That day, I stayed home from school, faked a stomach ache. My dad didn't even question it. I think he was relieved I wasn't causing more ghost drama, as he put it. I spent the day doing research on what happens to the body when it feels watched or touched, but can't identify the source. There's a phenomenon called the third man factor, where people in extreme danger, like mountain climbers or lost hikers, report feeling a presence guiding them, even talking to them. It's not a hallucination exactly. It's more like the brain creating a protector to keep you calm. But I started wondering, what if the presence you feel isn't a guardian? What if it's not something you invented, but something that was already there? Later that week, I came across an old blog post from a woman in Georgia who said her teenage daughter died under unexplained circumstances. The coroner ruled it heart failure, but the mom swore her daughter had called her 2 nights earlier, sobbing, saying she felt something breathing on her while she lay in bed. The mother told her not to worry, said it was stress or sleep paralysis. The girl was found dead in her room 8 hours later, eyes open, no injuries, no bruises except for 5 distinct pressure marks along her collarbone, as if someone had been leaning on her while she slept. The post ended with one sentence I'll never forget. I should have told her to run. After that, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't question the rules anymore. I wouldn't try to rationalize or explain them away. The house didn't care if I believed. It only cared whether I followed the instructions. That night in bed, I moved my nightstand in front of the bedroom door. I kept Max curled against my side. I kept a flashlight in one hand and my phone in the other, and I whispered the rules to myself like a prayer. Don't go into the basement after 11. Don't answer if you can't see them. Don't turn around if you feel breath. Just run. We all like to think we'd be brave in a moment like that we fight back, turn around, face the thing chasing us. But sometimes, survival means surrendering to instinct. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is run. That breath on my neck wasn't just a warning, it was a test. It wanted to see if I would look. I think if I had, I wouldn't be here now, writing this. Because the thing behind me, it wasn't human, and it was close enough to touch. You never really think about the front door of your house. It's just there. It's where Amazon drops packages, where you shake hands with neighbors and step out for pizza. It's not supposed to be a place of danger. That's reserved for other spaces, the woods, the basement, the unlit hallway. But after what happened on that last night, the front door became the most terrifying place in our home. And I knew deep in my gut that if I opened it, I wouldn't just be letting something in. I'd be letting myself out. The week leading up to it was full of small warnings. Our internet would cut out at exactly 12:03 a.m. every night without fail. No outage reports, no tech issues. Just dead silence, like the digital world had gone to sleep and we were the only house awake. My sister Ellie started talking in her sleep, something she'd never done before. But it wasn't mumbling, it was full sentences. And the worst part, it sounded like two voices were speaking at once, hers and something deeper layered underneath. I recorded it one night on my phone, hoping to prove I wasn't just scaring myself. The clip started normal, some shuffling, a sigh. Then Ellie said, "Don't answer the door, Caden." And then, layered in that same moment, another voice whispered over hers, "Unless it's me." That recording disappeared from my phone the next morning, vanished. No trace in the cloud, just gone. Friday night was the last night we stayed in that house. We didn't know it yet, but deep down, I think the house did. The day had been weirdly calm. I had an eerie sense of peace. No knocks, no whispers, no basement humming. My parents were even in a good mood. Dad brought home pizza. Mom let us eat in front of the television. For the first time in weeks, it felt like maybe, just maybe, whatever had been happening was over. At 11:58 p.m., I took Max outside for one last walk before bed. He hesitated at the back door, wouldn't cross the threshold. I had to carry him down the steps. The backyard was still. No wind, no sound. Even the cicadas had gone silent. Then Max growled. Low, steady, staring not at the woods, but at the side of the house where the front door was. I picked him up and hurried back inside. At exactly 12:01 a.m., the knocking began. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Not banging, not aggressive, just patient. Like whoever it was knew we were home, knew we were listening. My parents were asleep. Ellie was snoring softly. Max was trembling against my chest. I crept to the entry hallway, bare feet whispering across the hardwood. The door stood like a silhouette against the pale blue porch light. I didn't get close. I didn't even breathe too loudly. Then a voice spoke, just loud enough to hear through the door. "Caden, it's Dad. I forgot my keys. Can you let me in, bud?" My dad was already home. I'd seen him an hour ago. His shoes were by the stairs. His snoring echoed from the master bedroom. I didn't move, didn't speak. Another knock, louder this time. "Come on, Caden. It's cold out here. I need you to open the door." I backed up. Max growled again, low and shaking. Then came the words I will never forget. "If you don't open it, I'll have to come in a different way." And I heard the doorknob turn. I ran. I slammed my bedroom door, locked it, and pushed my desk in front of it. I wrapped Max in a blanket and sat with my back to the door, shaking. The knocking didn't stop, but it wasn't just from the front door anymore. It was at the windows, at the back patio glass, at the hallway mirror, like the house had become a speaker, and whatever was on the other side of the glass had found every place where inside met outside and was pressing its fingers against all of them. Then I heard Ellie's voice, muffled from her room across the hall. She was talking to someone. "No, I can't let you in. Mommy said not to let strangers in. You're not Caden." I stood up fast. She was awake, talking to the door. I bolted out of my room, across the hall, threw her door open. She was standing by the window, curtains wide, face blank, and she was smiling, not at me, at something outside. I yanked her away and pulled the curtains shut. She didn't even resist, just whispered, "He says he knows you. He says he told you the rules." That was when I realized something. The knocking, the whispers, the stories, they weren't random, they were tests. And if you failed even one, the house let it in. Somewhere in all of this, someone had come before me. Someone who wrote those rules, experienced all of this, and died trying to pass on what little they knew. That meant this house had been doing this a long time. It didn't want to hurt us. It wanted us to choose wrong. to open the door, to answer the voice, to look in the mirror, to ask it questions. Because once we chose, we were accountable. The house was a contract. I grabbed Ellie and Max, threw on coats over our pajamas, and ran. I didn't stop to wake my parents. I didn't stop to turn off lights. I didn't even grab my phone. I just ran straight to the garage, backed out my mom's car, and peeled down the driveway like my life depended on it. Because it did. In the rearview mirror, I swear I saw the front door swing open behind us. Not kicked, not broken, just gently opened, as if we'd been expected. We never went back. My parents thought I'd finally snapped, but something must have made sense to them deep down, because within a week, the house was on the market. A month later, we'd relocated to Tennessee. Smaller town, brighter house, no rules on the walls. But I still keep a copy, not because I think it's coming back, but because now I know the truth. It's not about the house. It's about the choice. What you say when the voice sounds like someone you trust. What you do when the knock comes and you feel pity. What you risk when you say, it's probably nothing. There are places in this world where the rules are the only thing keeping the dark on the other side of the wall. And those rules aren't superstitions. They're warnings. So if you ever find yourself in a strange home with a list of rules, don't laugh, don't question, don't try to outsmart them. Read them. Follow them. And if the knock comes after midnight, don't ask who it island. Ask what it wants. And then don't answer.